Information discussed in this podcast may be sensitive in nature to some listeners. Listener discretion is advised. Pepita Redhair couldn't wait to expand her horizons and leave her home on the Navajo reservation where she had grown up. And she would do just that when she graduated high school. She went on to enroll in the University of New Mexico and was pursuing her dreams to become a teacher. Pepita was working at a local Hot Topic store, and she was in a long-term relationship with her boyfriend, Nick, who she started dating in 2016. In March of 2020, things with Nick were a little rough, according to some close to Pepita. But they had been together a long time, and it seemed that they were determined to make it work. On March 24th, Pepita spent the day with her mom, Anita, and then her mom drove her to Albuquerque, New Mexico, where Nick lived and where Pepita was staying. On March 26th, Anita couldn't reach her daughter, and Anita and Pepita were exceptionally close, and almost immediately Anita had a bad feeling. Call it mother's intuition. March 27th was more of the same. Crickets from Pepita. Nick told Anita that they had argued the day before and that Pepita had left and he didn't know where she had gone. And he hasn't seen or heard from her since. Where is Pepita Madalyn Redhair? Hello, and welcome to a bonus episode of the Where Are They podcast, and another unsolved missing person case, and yet another case of a missing Indigenous woman. The MMIW crisis continues. Thank you so much for your support of our show and our mission. And without further ado, let's get right into the story of Pepita Redhair. Pepita was born August 4th, 1992, as a member of the Navajo Nation. She was an outgoing child, and as a young adult, she continued to enjoy meeting new people. She also loved to draw, she enjoyed skateboarding, and she hoped to go off to college one day to become a teacher. When she was 23 years old, Pepita met Nicholas K., and Nick and Pepita began dating right away. As their relationship grew, it also became more tumultuous, according to those that knew Pepita. There were claims of domestic violence and claims that Nick was drinking heavily. I'm not 100% sure if this is verified information, but it seems that multiple people have come forward to say this. On March 24th, 2020, Pepita had spent some of the day with her mom, Anita. Anita and Pepita were close, and they spoke almost daily. On this day, the two would spend some time together. They went to McDonald's, and then Anita took Pepita to Nick's house in South Albuquerque. When she dropped her daughter off, Pepita looked back at her and said, "Thanks, Mom. I love you." The next couple of days, Anita kept trying to reach her daughter, with no luck. On March 27th, Anita spoke to Nick to find out where Pepita was. Why wasn't Pepita returning her calls? And, much to Anita's surprise, Nick had no idea either. According to Nick, he and Pepita had gone out on the night of March 26th, the night before, and they had had an argument. He said Pepita walked out, and he hasn't heard from her since. Anita's gut, however, told her something was wrong. On March 28th, 2020, Anita called Albuquerque authorities to report her daughter as missing. But as per usual, when an adult goes missing, law enforcement told her there wasn't much they could do. Pepita was an adult and she had the right to disappear if she wanted. Anita tried calling Navajo authorities for help, but they told her that Albuquerque was out of their jurisdiction and there was nothing they could do. Anita was on her own. Pepita's sister, Shelda, also joined Anita to help. Shelda contacted local news media to see if they could share her sister's case, or at the very least, just her missing person flyer to get her face out there. But they would not. Nick would go on to say that he did get a text message from Pepita after she left, and she had said she was leaving him and she was with another man. Nick said he thought it might be one of the guys they had gone drinking with on the evening of March 26th, the night of their argument, but to date, those men have not been publicly identified. Now, all of this is happening right at the start of the pandemic that hit the world hard in March 2020, and then continued on, of course, for quite some time. And because of that, Anita and Shelda had struggled being able to search and to reach out to people to keep searching for Pepita. And while flyers were hung up around town, nobody was really going into town much anymore. The news was consumed with the pandemic. The timing of her disappearance couldn't have been worse. On March 30th, 2020, Anita finally received a text back from Pepita's phone, and her heart skipped a beat. Was her daughter finally texting her back? But it wasn't Pepita. In fact, it was someone who claimed that they purchased that phone just a day or so ago off the streets. I'm curious if authorities ever followed up on that lead so as to maybe discover who was selling Pepita's phone to begin with. That certainly could have answered some questions, but there really isn't much additional information on that. And during this time, Nick didn't seem too worried. And in fact, he didn't report Pepita missing himself until April 19th, 2020, almost a full month after Pepita vanished. Which does make me wonder, what prompted him to finally do that on April 19th? Was he getting pressure from family? I assume he knew that the family had already reported her missing as well. I don't know why he thought then he had to, or maybe he thought it would put pressure on authorities. I don't know. I wonder what his thought process was for finally making a missing person report himself. As time went on, Anita and Shelda continued to rally for Pepita, doing everything they could to get some attention and help for her case. They attended marches and protests and became involved in trying to raise awareness. Now, not just for Pepita, but for the MMIW crisis in general. Albuquerque, New Mexico is outside of the reservation. It's about an hour drive away. Albuquerque is actually near the center of the state, and it is the most populated city in the state with just over 1 million residents. But as populous as the city is, there are tons of remote areas surrounding the city. There's desert, there's mountains, and even the Rio Grande River, which runs right through the city itself. Interestingly, out of that population of Albuquerque, only 4% are Native American. Pepita's case is considered an MMIW case. She is a missing Indigenous woman, and she did go missing from the city of Albuquerque. But how hard have Albuquerque authorities searched for Pepita? The Navajo Nation is the largest land area of any reservation within the United States. It covers over 27,000 square miles and consists of over 17 million acres. The reservation is governed by a president and a vice president, just like the U.S. These officials are voted in to office every 4 years, and they do work in conjunction with the Bureau of Indian Affairs within the United States government. The Navajo Nation has the same struggles that all reservations do, however. There's lack of resources, there's lack of employment, which leads to a higher than average poverty rate and ultimately a higher than average crime rate. And the Navajo Nation is no stranger to the MMIW crisis. In July of 2022, the FBI began working with the Navajo Nation to identify missing Indigenous people. This is a good step to not only bringing awareness to the missing person cases, but also hopefully to get the help and resources they need to find these people and solve these cases. In October of 2022, a report was issued. A database was created, essentially, that listed the missing person cases from the Navajo Nation. There were 192 names on this list. On this list are familiar names of cases I've covered before, including Ella Mae Begay, who I do have an update episode coming out soon on her case, Antoinette Cayedito, who has been missing since April 1986 and was just 9 years old when she vanished. And of course, also on the list is Pepita Redhair. After 3 years, Pepita Redhair remains a missing person. Nick has never been named an official person of interest, but many do have questions about what he knows. Some wonder if she did get involved with someone else and that someone else has Pepita or did something to her. She was so close to her family, it's hard to imagine that she would voluntarily leave and cut off all communication with them. What do you think happened to Pepita Redhair? Pepita is described as a Native American woman, standing 5 foot 2 inches tall and weighing around 140 pounds when she was last seen in March of 2020. She was 27 years old then and would today be 30. Pepita had shoulder-length dark brown hair and brown eyes. She also has 2 moles on her chin and a scar over her left eyebrow. Pepita has several tattoos, including a dinosaur on her right forearm, a koi fish, or some kind of dinosaur on her left forearm, a butterfly on her shoulder, a moon with lightning on her left leg, and her last name, Redhair, is tattooed elsewhere on her body. Anyone with any information on the whereabouts of Pepita Redhair is asked to contact the Albuquerque Police Department at 505-768-2020. Thank you so much for listening to Pepita's story today. Another unsolved missing person case and another young woman within the MMIW crisis. But we can't let Pepita become a statistic. Keep sharing her story, her name, her case. Pepita needs found and her family deserves answers. They have waited way too long already. We will be back again very soon with another unsolved missing person case. And until then, stay safe and hug your loved ones.